everyone. I'm Rosie Ward, and this is Show Up as a Leader. I can tell you, you are going to walk away from today's episode inspired, challenged. I had an incredible conversation with my friend Brandon Peele. He is the founder of Unity Lab. And let me just tell you a little bit about Brandon. He's a fellow Midwesterner. He is a best-selling author. He is an impact entrepreneur, and he is an expert in social learning and culture change. And prior to founding Unity Lab, which you'll learn about in the conversation and just launched in October of 2020, he worked at two leading social learning companies, both Ion and Imperative, and he really worked on activating empathy, trust, belonging, purpose, and leadership at a broad scale. He has consulted with many, many organizations like Google and Johnson & Johnson and Morgan Stanley and Stanford University and the Marine Corps, Berkeley, the Navy, list goes on. And he has written and co-written 4 books on purpose and leadership, and his work has been featured by news organizations such as USA Today, US News, World Report, and Forbes. Brandon is such an incredible person, and I feel like what the heck didn't we talk about in this conversation? We talk about purpose. We talk about this incredible need that he saw, this cultural divide on so many levels, and the work that he's doing trying to be part of the movement to heal some of our hurting. We talked about whether or not people can use the doctor title. We talk about racial inequities. We talk about Black Lives Matter. We talk about courage. We talk about so many different things. And I just walked away inspired by the passion that Brandon has for the work he's doing and the difference he's trying to make in the world, and the realness that he brings to this conversation of where he sells himself short, gets stuck. And it's just an inspiring, uplifting conversation. And he gives some really incredible tips of things that we can do to apply what he's doing at Unity Lab in our own lives to start to build community and build relationships with people who are different than us. It's hard to hate people close up, and seeking out those differences is such a critical part of us moving forward and having a better future. So strap on your seatbelts, sit back, and enjoy this conversation. All right. Well, Brandon, it is so awesome to spend time with you. Thank you so much for being here today.
It's awesome to be here with you, Rosie.
So you have been up to a lot of really, really cool stuff since the last time we connected. And we're going to talk about Unity Lab in a minute, but I think that there is background or precursor information that needs to be told that leads up to what you're doing now. And so I know when we talked in prep for this podcast, you were talking about the culture crisis and kind of where your soul is now. And can you just talk a little bit about what you're seeing out in the world and how that drove you to doing the work you're doing with Unity Lab?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Well, I've had the good fortune of working with great companies like Imperative and Ion, and we developed over time kind of I would call like a best practice for a scalable culture change, right? Putting people in small, diverse groups, having them learn something together. And the beautiful thing that happens is they learn more, they complete the program, but they also develop empathy and trust across perceived difference. Like, so this is race, this is political preference, this is political ideology, it's gender, it's boomer versus millennial, and basically allows people to come together in a brand new way. And so while I had a lot of fun doing this for big companies, I'm like, we have a 5-alarm fire in our country right now. It's like not just right, left, but all these other divisions. Well, we need to point this really effective tool right at our deepest wounds to try to heal us. Now that's like the headpiece. Now, For me personally, when we first met, I was all about purpose. I've been all about purpose for the last 8 years. And this year with the political dysfunction, obviously the pandemic, the unjust police murders of African-American and BIPOC folks. So it just started to shift. I was like, I live in this country that's got these beautiful purpose statements, e pluribus unum, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And when you look at the numbers behind that, it's like, we really aren't doing anything to fulfill on that. I mean, life is really good for a few white guys near cities, basically.
Yeah.
And everybody else is like either degrees or, an order of magnitude of suffering away from the average white guy near a city. So obviously poor Americans, rural Americans are, paycheck to paycheck. I think it's 78% of us were paycheck to paycheck prior to the pandemic.
Right.
And
the pandemic has only illuminated that much more the disparities, right, between wealth, health, and you just seeing how much it's not equal at all. And that's hurting us in the divide. I don't love what you're saying, but the divide in so many levels is getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's lots of reasons for hope, right? It seems like we just in the last couple of days, we've seen some bipartisanship around the recent stimulus. And by all, basically at the federal level, there's a lot of things happen, like a lot of things that are like kind of percolating. And I just learned about this called the Problem Solvers Caucus. You heard of it?
No, I haven't.
It's like 25 Republicans, 25 Democrats who like each other, trust each other, learn together, debate respectfully, and propose bipartisan solutions.
Like, what a concept! Oh my God!
Congress is supposed to be doing.
Oh my God!
Why do they need a little mini Congress inside Congress to do this? But anyways, so things like that. Of course, the broader weaving community. There's 300 plus organizations who are trying to stitch the country back together, the social, the moral fabric. And we have a president-elect who says he wants to unify the nation. So there's lots of reasons to be hopeful. Now, as you and I both know, even the best policy, we saw the ill-fated Warren campaign that I was heavily invested in. Like, her plans are amazing, right? Culture wasn't ready for it. Same thing with the Civil Rights Act. Amazing legislation, like serious moral leadership on hundreds, if not thousands of people to bring that thing to fruition. But all that did was just push the rhetoric and the dialogue underwater. The racism, the unconscious bias, all that stuff, all the cultural wounds unhealed from slavery and native genocide, and all that stuff is still there. And obviously the white supremacy culture. So like we're starting to get that it's not just policy. We have to treat culture strategically, because if we don't, we're just going to have more of the same. Okay, great ideas by this bipartisan caucus. Awesome. Doesn't go anywhere. Or it gets passed and people don't believe it because it's fake news, or it's a leftist plot or a rightist plot. And so we've got this culture crisis, and that's what Unity Lab is up to, and the other partner organizations within Weave.
Yeah. So one of the things you said that I was struck by is you talked about that the work you did that kind of led to Unity Lab, because I want you to talk a little bit more specifically about what Unity Lab is doing and on a more detailed level. You talked about really bringing people together, whether it's different political ideologies or gender preferences or religious views or, generational, whatever it might be. And one of the things that we talk about in the work we do, and it's actually our 5th rehumanizing principle, find your tribe, is not about tribalism the way we think about it today. It's going back historically to the word origin of tribe, about people who have your back. And we talk about intentionally seeking out others who are different from you with the spirit of understanding, right? And growing and building community, which is really what you're talking about. And it sounds like you've done successfully within organizations and now want to bring this on a broader scale, right? To help kind of heal the wounds that are going on in our country that you talked about. So can you talk more specifically then about what exactly is it that Unity Lab is doing to help with some of this divisiveness and trying to bring some healing?
Yeah, happy to. Before I do that, I think it would be probably good to outline a broader theory of change, because Unity Lab just does one thing, right? It's not all things, all people. It solves this part of the problem, but there's a bigger kind of game at play. So we do require, for lack of a better word, spiritual leadership in this moment. There is this unspoken American civil religion, as Robert Putnam talks about, and that our leaders, our political, our elected leaders, are the high priests, and their job is to evoke our better angels and to turn pluribus into unum. So like that's one piece of it, and that seems like it's well on the way to basically happening. then there's the overall kind of fear, agitation profile of like just the home economics of life. And so that's where the stimulus comes in, and the infrastructure bill, the Green New Deal, like some of the things that are going to bring great paying, steady, fulfilling jobs to rural populations and historically marginalized populations. So like that's a big piece of it too. Now, where the Unity Lab method can play is in kind of two really interesting areas. One, as an ethos, so small diverse learning as an ethos within the broader educational framework. Because right now we're still basically teaching the same way we taught 300 years ago, training armies, right? It's like, I learned how to shoot a gun from that guy, and I'm going to teach you how to shoot a gun, and this is how you shoot a gun, and whether or not you ever need to shoot a gun, that's what we're doing today. You know?
Yeah. And so we do what we've always done without really thinking about, does it make sense anymore? Yeah.
Yeah. And this is not to indict teachers. I love teachers. Teachers in my family, I've taught, and I'll be the first to admit it's not super effective. Like this one-to-many thing, we need to nurture interactivity and specifically within and across like boundaries. And so what the Unity Lab method does is it's basically, you take 4 people who are diverse and you put them together for an hour for 5 sessions. That could be once a week for 5 weeks or every other week for 10 weeks. And the results of that method, and so they're learning and they're talking about their perspectives, sharing their stories, learning communication skills. But the results of just setting up any learning, we could be talking about selling door to door. We could be talking about how to make a great soup, whatever. Or, you know, in our domain, like leadership, culture, competencies. But the results of that method are that 95% of folks complete, which is unheard of in e-learning, for example. And I compare it to e-learning because there's no facilitator. These are all peer facilitated. So there's no bottlenecks here. You don't need to hire a smart person like you or me to like sit and hover over everybody, make sure they're getting the material. They literally teach each other. And so people complete it. They learn more through this method. So we ask them, how much more did you learn because of the discussion? They say 63% more than they would have just from the content alone. So there's, because it's woven into story, and that's how we think and relate. And then the part that fulfills on my purpose and the purpose of the United States is that 98% of participants experience respect from their diverse peers, which is, I mean, if we just had that, if 98% of Americans respected each other, you know, like, I value you as a human being. You're not evil and wrong because you didn't vote differently, or you drive a plug-in and I drive a Hummer or whatever. Like, and then 96% of participants experience empathy from their diverse peers. So this is where it begins. And of course, these things take time. That's why, it's spread out over 5 sessions. And of course, I want to see people doing it more than just like one 5-session thing. But that's basically the idea. Aggregate or bring people together around a cause. That could be like our neighborhood, our city. So we're doing like a San Diego launch in January. But any organization, any neighborhood community can say, we are going to come together this year. Like we're going to make community a strategic priority, and here's how we're going to do it. And then people learn together, and they learn to like each other, and the tribe forms.
Well, I love that. I was being interviewed on a radio show recently, and we were having this conversation about it's hard to hate people close up. So, right. So when you get to know people as a human being versus your, like you said, your preconceived ideas about them, your stereotypes, your judgments, are conscious and unconscious biases. And now you're actually in a dialogue with a person, and you start to, see what makes them tick. The natural response typically is empathy when we let go of our judgment and move to curiosity. And so what I love is that, you're intentionally curating groups of people to say, okay, you want to learn about a topic and you want to have your thinking challenged. So let's put you with some, people who are not like you, and create these groups. How hard is it because obviously you're intentionally putting these groups together, and if they're not facilitated, I'm assuming you have to have some ground rules or something, because they've got to learn how to listen to one another. I'm curious about how you set these groups up so they're successful if they're not facilitated.
Yeah. So there's a couple ways that we set this up. So first is there's still no discounting the value of a live event, even if there's a facilitator and all that. So we create a gathering where everybody comes together at once, and they get to experience the method using Zoom kind of breakout rooms. But in that, we kind of set the expectations, like this is what we're up to this year as an organization, as a community, as a neighborhood, as a parish, whatever it is. And what we're going to do is activate our values in a new way and create deeper bonds where your membership, your relationships here are going to be way more fulfilling than they were last year, which is easy to do, well, than 2 years ago. But
yeah.
And so we kind of enroll them basically. And then from there, their very first session. So the way that I envision is like people first need to have an agreement about how to communicate with each other. So the first set of 5 modules is all about conscious communication. So it's in the first module, they're learning about what are group agreements, and then they generate them as a small group of 4. So there's like the suggested ones, and then there's some other ones, and they basically form their own little bonds here already, like in the first 5 minutes, forming bonds across difference. Like, we all agree on this is how we want to show up.
That's so important, because we talk about that in all the work we do. It's just a different language, but container building, right? If we don't have agreed upon right off the bat that we've co-created, someone didn't hand it down for us, and we can give them questions to consider to create that. But if we don't do that and then don't have guideposts that we can bring ourselves back to or hold ourselves and each other accountable, there's no opportunity for psychological safety. And if there's not psychological safety, we can't have the dialogues we need to have.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's really what we're doing, is like building that container. And from the post assessments I've been receiving, it's like right around the 3rd conversation. That's where that group just goes click. Like, all right, I can't wait to see this person again. They're nothing like me. They don't, whatever, but I just love seeing their face because they shared that thing about their brother, or they shared that thing about they're struggling with this health issue or whatever. So basically, proving your point, that the contact hypothesis was used in the 70s as the jigsaw method, getting people to spend time together to accomplish something together. In this case, it's learning. But yeah, and so like each of the 5 modules of the first one it's all about conscious communication. So apologies, active listening, I statements, gratitude, all that, all the basics. And then we get to the real juicy stuff. Like, what does it mean to be Black in America? Like, what does it mean to have a physical disability? Like, so we get to explore some of the different experiences. And what does it mean to be a closeted Republican? What does it mean? So we, like, these types of things start to be explored and embraced, and kind of form the bonds of vulnerability and intimacy that we need to function in a diverse society. This is Sweden. We wouldn't need to do this.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I love that you're seeing results. And so what I also love is that, talk about showing up as a leader is, you've done all this great work. You start to kind of have this awakening of what you're experiencing going on in the world in 2020 and seeing this culture crisis, and then looking at how can I be part of the solution, right? You said it's a piece. It's not the only one, but how can you add your voice to it? How can you do this? So you talk about your Unity Lab work as kind of one piece. You also mentioned other organizations. Like, is there an interconnectedness, or how you're collaborating with other organizations to, on a scale of togetherness, trying to help with what we're experiencing in terms of divisiveness in this country?
Yeah. So there's the weaving community. So I think it might be weaving.us and then /partners, but I think it's just weaving.us. And that's over 300 local organizations for the most part who are biting off some part of this problem. So it could be racial reconciliation, reparations, unconscious bias training. It could be bringing Republicans and Democrats together to have a different conversation. And so this community was built by Pierce Godwin and a couple other folks at the Listen First Project, and in conjunction with David Brooks's Weave, the Social Fabric Project. So they built this coalition, and there's a monthly call, and we use the hashtag Weaving Community on all of our posts and all that kind of stuff. So there's the beginnings of like a web of collaborators. Now, what the future holds for this group, I don't know. I wasn't the founder. I'm just a participant like everybody else. So my hope is that this becomes like a very cohesive movement where there's a well-articulated theory of change, where we're like advocating, this is what needs to happen in schools, churches, your family, your neighborhood block, blah, 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 blah. Where we're basically saying like, here's what works. We've got 300 practitioners on the ground making it happen. If you want to have a community you love, or if you want to experience less racial hostility or political animosity, here's a guidebook. And hopefully that becomes national policy at some point. But
yeah. So for the people who are listening, like as they're listening to this, if they're getting inspired, or how can I do that? And maybe it's getting involved in one of your groups or whatnot, but what are you seeing some cool things that people are doing? Either, as a result of your Unity Lab groups or some of these others with the weaving community that, might inspire others. I mean, what are some things that you're seeing in terms of how people are showing up as leaders and influencing change that might give others ideas?
Yeah. It's a little too early for me to speak specifically to Unity Lab because we just launched in October, and it's, Christmas basically.
Yeah.
One thing I'm experiencing or have seen from the surveys is that people want to keep meeting. So these groups, even though the program's over, they're like, I love you guys. Like, let's do this once a quarter, and let's do this once a month. So that's a good thing, right? People across difference wanting to see each other again. What I would love to see is literally for Unity Lab to go out of existence. I mean, like any nonprofit, I don't even know what our business model is yet, but but the idea is that we shouldn't have to exist. Like, all we're trying to do is restore some harmony to the cosmos, and that this method, it's something I like to do, but it's not proprietary. You can't patent an idea. And I want everybody to be doing this. Every organization, every church, every university, K-12. So to the extent that folks want to create greater cohesion, empathy, collaboration, and these are all like I would call it the threads, the sinews that are critical to any successful organization. So, you don't just hire smart people and get great results. You have to also bring them together. It's basically stealing it, like taking this method and replicating it and putting it everywhere you want, and don't even feel like you need to attribute it. Just do it. Bring diverse people together to achieve something.
Yeah. Well, I love it. It's seeking out people who are different than you. You said bringing diverse people together, creating some ground rules that you create together that you can hold yourselves to. Maybe having some learning of how to listen, or maybe that's part of the ground rules, or maybe there is a little bit of education of, hey, here's what we're going to try. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I know that when we talk about whether it's organizational groups within a community, or whether it's teams within a workplace or cross-functional teams, when we're trying to solve problems, a lot of times we get stuck on that interpersonal stuff, and it becomes my idea versus your idea. But when we take it off of me versus you, and we look at a problem, right? Our lens is now both collectively sitting like side by side, looking at a problem. It's very different, right? Because now it becomes that adversarialness, divisiveness goes away a little bit, because we're not looking at each other like head to head, butting heads. We're looking together, shoulder to shoulder at something else, and then bringing our perspectives to it. So I love that you're doing that. What are your thoughts of what is getting in the way of us being able to do this at scale? What is getting in our way of us being able to have a country with more harmony, or people living in more harmony?
There's a couple of quick fixes. So I start to flesh out a theory of change. Now, one of the things we haven't yet mentioned is our federal communications policy. So We used to say that you had a legal obligation to be truthful and to present a balanced, program if you're going to explore something that has to do with the common good, because the airwaves are owned by the people. And they need to be stewarded in the best interest of the people. So that needs to happen. We need to reinstitute the, what was it called? Fairness, something or other. I think Reagan decided not to re-up it again in '87. And that's basically what spawned the hyper-partisan cable news networks, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, etc. So now these entities don't have to be responsible for what they say. And that we need to change that, because obviously we're seeing people believing a whole bunch of nonsense. And I've been guilty of it too. I 5-10 years ago, I believed my fair share of conspiracy theories. So that's a piece of it. And then also social media, because now it can travel fast and it comes with the social weight of the person who shared it. And unless that person is a trained scientist or a journalist, odds are they did not think about this in the proper way and share just whatever, for whatever reason, who knows? So there's some kind of pretty critical levers that, even by executive order can be corrected in Q1. The couple other things that are in the way, and I mentioned the kind of economic suffering. So when people don't have enough to eat, their morality kind of goes out the window, basically. And all Americans have some sense, unless they're, sociopaths or something, have some sense of I'm a good person. Good people act this way. I turn the other cheek. I extend help when I can. They've got some kind of moral code. But when you've got 78% of Americans at subsistence wages, it suddenly becomes a little bit easier to throw that out and to take for what's mine. People are already doing that. I mean, people are shoplifting food at historic levels right now because they're hungry. So there's that piece. We need to get up to a living wage for everybody. And hopefully that's through jobs and not through handouts necessarily. But and then at the kind of institutional organizational level, this is something I'm sure you're very familiar with. L&D people like to do things the way that L&D people like to do things. They don't want to do things that differently. Same thing with OD and all that. It's kind of like a precious group. So I love all you, but I'm going to kind of throw you under the bus here for a second.
Go for it.
Because, you're the lone humanist in your organization, or you think you are, it doesn't mean that you need to be standing in front of the classroom or determining what these, dim-witted, whatever people in your organization experience and learn. Yes, you have a role in crafting the strategy and asking the right questions and bringing in the best solutions and all that. But historically, a lot of folks have operated like school superintendents. I'm the smart one. You're the dumb one. Here's the information. Pass the test. Okay, now you can go back to your job, in this very paternalistic way. And so this old way of learning and development needs to kind of go. We need to just basically empower people to train each other.
Yeah. Well, it's the most effective. And I know one of the conversations that we have regularly with leaders is, our ongoing development as human beings and in the workplace, very small percentage should actually be coming from formal training and development programs. The overwhelming majority, 70%, is on the job. And that's from mentoring. That's from learning by doing, right? We learn by doing, we learn by experiences. This is where people who have a formal people leadership roles need to find those engageable, coachable moments on a daily basis, right? So it's engaging people with the work, helping them see that it matters, helping create those developmental moments, not, oh yeah, once a year, once a quarter, or once a month or whatever, we're going to send you to this class. That's 10% of it. 70% of it should be real on the job stuff. And I do think that we lose sight of that. And I will say what we see a lot is people will suddenly go, oh, here, like, send you to Rosie, send you to Salveo Partners. And if we can only do so much, but the conversations we have are what's the structure you are building for this to be embedded in your day to day and to have life of its own beyond whatever content or skills or whatever we might do or coaching we might do, because otherwise there's no point.
Right.
Right. Because if you can't take a person who learns some skills or even goes through transformative coaching, you can't take a changed person and put them back into an unchanged environment and expect that anything is going to be helpful. All it's going to do is frustrate the hell out of that person and they're going to leave. Right. So, I mean, it's true. And so I so appreciate that. And I think that there are definitely some old school OD or L&D people that are kind of that gatekeeper. And I also do think that there is kind of a movement happening in that space. I feel like I'm an honorary person because I didn't grow up in that field. I kind of morphed into it. And I feel like, I don't know, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But I think that organizations that do approach it of like, or here's a classroom, or what I love is here, we've got this online portal of classes, and not that stuff's not helpful, but if that's our idea of our development is here, go take a class, like a pre-recorded. Like, no, you're not interacting with human beings. You're not being challenged to think differently. You're not being, challenged to communicate differently. You're just taking in knowledge. Knowledge is not the same as development.
Yeah, exactly. And you bring up a really good point there because, a lot of people think they're learning organizations because they have, an LMS, or they give people incentives, or they make it part of their performance review. But that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about what we're talking about is development, like where this is a human-centric organization. We all have a purpose and we're imperfect human beings trying to fulfill on it. And we stand for each other's purpose and try to empower folks and point out where they're off purpose, but from love and with grace and all that kind of stuff. Like these developmental organizations are, Keegan Leahy called deliberately developmental, the DDOs. That's really what we want. We all want to be fulfilled. We all want to have diverse cultures of belonging. We want this. We want to be nurtured and cradled. Not that we're incapable of taking care of ourselves, but like it was this Christian guy from the early 1900s said, we cannot become ourselves by ourselves, and we need each other. This is like a call for tribe, basically. And I think it's been heightened over the last year because now even like the weak ties, the water cooler stuff, the mindless babble about the weekend and whatever. I mean, like I kind of miss that. I would take some mindless babble about your kids, pooping in the living room or whatever.
Well, you're right, because as Brene Brown always says, we are neurobiologically hardwired for connection, and it is a core human need to feel like we matter and to be heard and seen. And it takes a different level of intentionality to create that when people are in a virtual environment, that people aren't going back into a workplace. There are still obviously many industries where people are physically going in, but now half your face is covered by a mask and you can't read body language. And so it takes a whole other level to foster and have that connection. But the other thing you said that's really important is that we can only get so far on our own, going back to where we're meant to be in connection. And the good and bad news about being in community and finding people who are different than you and creating those tribes in the broadest sense, right? Not tribalism per se, is that those people who are different than us, or those people who are connected enough with us, they hold up mirrors, right? Mm-hmm. And they hold up mirrors and they illuminate our blind spots. And that can be really unsettling, yet it is such a gift. And I think that, I don't know about you, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, Brandon, but I think about, 2020 has been kind of one crisis after another. And I think that when life is as challenging as it has been this year, it really starts to reveal the true character of individuals and organizations and what we're made of. And you've seen so many incredible people and organizations take this and become so much better versions of themselves and grow and not get stuck of, ooh, wow, like I really wasn't good at this, or I had all these biases I didn't know about, or what. Like, I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, I'm going to get uncomfortable. It's going to be messy, but man, I'm going to do this work. And then you've seen almost the opposite end of the spectrum of people doubling down and becoming rigid and again, more divisiveness and stuff. And so I think that when we let ourselves be open to true development, not just learning, right? And we really, that requires us to be vulnerable. It requires us to let someone hold up that mirror. It requires us to be open to those blind spots being revealed to us or reminded to us. I know I've had numerous of them over 2020. I'm like, oh crap, here we go again. Oh, right. But it makes such a huge difference. So I know that you had this big shift, and obviously you launched Unity Lab in October. What I would love to hear from you is what are some of the big learnings you've been having about yourself, and really just about, you've spent years in purpose and leadership. Just what are some of the big ahas and learnings that you've had that this year has brought for you?
Yeah. Wow. Before I hit that, I just want to, if I don't, this doesn't bounce around my head, if it'll just annoy me if I don't get it out. But what you were saying about like the blind spots and having a community, a tribe, a office culture that supports you in looking at those. That sounds like a weird thing, right? Especially for those of us who've never experienced or are unfamiliar with that term, or have never seen the joy and the breakthrough and the expansion that occurs once you bring some light on that blind spot. But that itself right there, from a developmental perspective, is what is needed before we can really engage. And what I mean is like the dominant class, white, middle class people, before we can really get to the heart of Black Lives Matter or Indigenous genocide, because these personal blind spots need to be exposed and seen as a source of gold and growth. Then we can say, all right, well, what are we not seeing at the collective level? Because, activists are going to keep raising their hand and be like, hey, what about us? What about water rights? What about Indigenous lands? What about police brutality? This isn't going away. It's not like 2021 is where we're just going to change the channel and it'll go back to like Beaver Cleaver land. Like, it's not going to happen. So I just wanted to presence that and like, thank you for the work that you're doing in helping people see the value in their own development, because it's going to allow us collectively to see, wow, we really screwed the pooch on big things like slavery and killing people, a lot of them. Like,
well, and what's funny is even just a small microcosm, and this is like, I mean, honestly, this is nothing compared to the Indigenous genocide and, Black Lives Matter and systemic racism. Like, it is nothing. And I want to preface that, but I'm laughing about how social media blew up recently because of the op-ed in the Wall Street Journal of whoever it was telling Dr. Jill Biden to not call herself doctor. And then I've been seeing all of these debates over LinkedIn and whatnot about, well, then she's getting confused with the medical doctor, and people going like round and round. And I even was like, okay, I don't make people call me Dr. Rosie, but like, I've earned it. And if someone told me I couldn't, oh man, like I am going to lose my freaking mind. And so one of my dear friends, Debbie, sent me this image, and I sent it to my mom because she's a PsyD, and it said, it was like holding a doll, and it says, tell me where the scary woman, threatened your manhood by using doctor or something. But it created this whole freaking debate of who's worthy of a title that they earn, because is it an MD versus a PhD versus a PsyD versus a DO versus are we going to start to get into the nuances of all the different type of doctors that are out there? Anyway, so it's just funny that you get into just little things of blind spots, and then people get all crazy and attack one another versus, I didn't realize that was a thing, or I didn't know that EDD was also a doctor. I only knew there was MD and PhD or whatever. And so anyway, it's just funny because I think that there are so many goofy, and it just, that has blown up recently. It's been one that I've been a part of because, okay, well, I am a woman and I happen to have that title. And I'm like, yeah, I can tell you there's numerous times that medical doctors, I work with a lot of them, many of them are wonderful, but that have been like, oh, they're absolutely not going to call me doctor, because they'll go, well, you're not a real doctor. And I'm like, really? 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 We're going to go there? We're going to go there. Anyway, sorry. Tangent.
I am not a doctor, but
you just play one on TV.
I have many friends like yourself who've gone through that process, and that, speaking of growth, that is a unrelenting initiation that borders on psychosis to even decide to do, much less complete it. So I have all the respect in the world for PhDs, EDs, and all the other things. I mean, like, Like, that's no joke. It's no joke.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. Anyway.
But yeah, so there were a couple things this year that shifted for me internally. So, because I love purpose and got to, connect with it every morning, it's pretty easy for me to like generate an empowering context around what's happening. Right. I'm just like, okay, how do I live my purpose here? Where can I apply my values? And I realized that I actually, I was kind of doing myself a disservice. Like, I sit in a men's circle and I get to experience my emotions and the shadows and all that kind of stuff there. But for the most part, I'm like this like warrior that just like one foot in front of the other, just go do the thing. And this year just, broke me open. I mean, it was okay like the first month, but like the second month, I was like, I am so lonely. All I want to do is like grab a stranger and kiss him. Like, just like this total like needy child, like, I love you. And I think I gave myself permission to actually feel terrible this year. Like, okay, I'm keeping my commitments. I'm gonna lay down on the couch. This feels like what needs to happen. There's some kind of spiritual, psychological molting that I'm participating in this pandemic. And so I'm just gonna go experience that. I'm not gonna turn that away. So that was kind of new for me. And, I think I shared this with you around George Floyd's murder. Like, I mean, I had marched before and signed petitions and voted for, politicians who are aligned with Black liberation, but it was still kind of arm's distance. It was, more like sympathy, like, oh, we got to do everything we can for them. But yeah, those 8 minutes, 46 seconds, it was like a kind of like just shock. Like I remember in the days after my brother died, it was like that. It was like, did that really happen? Like, he's not here anymore. Like it was, and then it was, basically, okay, well, this is my fight. Like,
yeah,
I'll be damned if my daughter or my children asked me like, well, what did you do when George Floyd was murdered? And I said, well, I went back to work selling L&D solutions to organizations. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm like, that changed for me. I'm like, no, actually, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's like, this is my fight now. This is my fight. And,
it's so interesting to say that. And for the benefit of the listeners, we're both white, right? Middle class people. And I don't know about you. And I think I've probably said this to other guests, but yeah, I mean, it started this whole different conversation. And I would say an awakening in me as well, in that, I have friends, I have family members who are Black, who are mixed, who are like, right. And really looking at this whole idea of not considering yourself a racist is very different than being an anti-racist, which is something that wasn't even on my purview until George Floyd was murdered and Breonna Taylor and everything since. And because it happened in Minneapolis and then the riots and everything in our backyard, it was like, holy moly. And I started, like, it was so unsettling in a different way than any of the others, probably because it was in our backyard, or I don't know. Maybe it was just because on top of COVID and everything else. And I remember a couple days after it happened, right? And then you talk about links going around on social media, but I found an NPR, and usually National Public Radio is a pretty valid source. And it was this historical video, 15, 20 minutes long. And it was about redlining. And I was like, what the hell is this? And I asked my husband, who's also white, middle class. And I was like, did you learn any of this crap growing up? Like, we both grew up in suburban, Minneapolis. No. And I'm like, why aren't we learning this? And what else didn't we learn? And then I started getting pissed off. I was like, so what I'm learning in school, my history is filtered, and what else haven't I been taught? And so it's just this interesting. So again, unless we go, challenge ourselves, get uncomfortable, blind spots, like, what else don't I know? And it's not the job of my Black friends and family members to educate me, but I can listen with curiosity and go, I never knew this crap and I am so sorry. And, just know I stand with you and I don't know what else I can do. You don't need to make me feel better. You don't need to, it's the whole, anyway, it's just been a really interesting awakening, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been really heartened to see some baby boomers who I'm close with, just like, are you kidding me? Like, this was part of life. And I never saw it in the last 6-7 decades. I never saw police brutality or discrimination or redlining or I was never part of any of that. But like whoa. So I basically benefited from the system that oppressed these people.
Yep.
I need to look at that, which is cool. I mean, this is the my mom in particular. This is the first year where she really got her complicity. I don't think she's changed anything, but she's like, like 6 decades of supporting white supremacy culture. Yeah, got it. I did that.
Yeah.
But
there can be a lot of shame and grief and stuff that goes with it too. But
it's shameful.
Yeah.
You need to be ashamed of it to move through it. Like, it's like, oh God.
Yeah. So I want to ask you this. So I love that you're like, oh, I'm just going to lay on the couch or whatever. Like, I think sometimes there's this word that comes to mind, surrender. And by the time this airs, I will have had Brian Ungard on, and we had a whole conversation about really letting ourselves surrender versus trying to fight it, right? And sometimes we just have to give ourselves permission to feel and be and surrender to what is versus fighting what is. So kudos to that. But these are questions that I ask all the guests. And what I love about what you're sharing is there are so many different facets, whether it's really giving yourself permission to feel and surrender, whether it's I'm going to anchor myself on my purpose, whether it's, I see this need out there and I'm going to figure out a way to be part of the solution. I mean, there's so many ways that you are doing incredible work to show up as a leader. And we know that we all get in our own way and we have these stories that want to help us be safe, but they keep us very small. So my question for you, Brandon, is what is a self-limiting story that you find yourself telling yourself? And when it shows up, how do you move beyond it so that you can still show up as a leader in your life?
Yeah. Well, the one I'm dealing with right now is just like top of mind one. So when I don't feel connected or valued or seen, I go into basically addictive behaviors. I start using nicotine again and pour an extra glass of scotch. And I tell myself, I justify it because, fairly smart. Oh yeah, well, it's a pandemic. You got to do what you can and cut yourself some slack and all that. But it repeats or it edifies a belief that I am alone. Like that. The only way I can experience joy is by throwing a chew in or, getting a little tipsy or something like that. So there's like that. And I've noticed it because I've noticed when it comes up, like my wife and I will have like a little disagreement. And I'm just like, little part of me is like, F her. I'm going to go buy a tin of chew. So for me, like, that's the thing. It's like this delusion that I'm alone and that if the world isn't opening its arms to me and rolling out the red carpet, then I can treat my body terribly, and do things that are bad for me. That's there, and I think there's even though I'm fairly outspoken and outgoing, like there's a part of me that, and this is very much in the blind spot range, so I don't even know what it is that is playing small. So I'm in the process of getting a new mentor in my men's organization who sees that I'm bigger than I'm showing up. So there's something over there that I can't really see it yet, but that's keeping me tiny.
Got it.
So we'll see.
Got it. I love it. Well, I love that you're seeking out someone, right, that can do that, because we do all have those stories that keep us safe and small. And I'll guarantee you that we usually don't identify what those are without a lot of serious waiting in the messy middle work, as we would say, and reflection. A lot of times we need that external mirror, that external person to help us see it, because our brains will fight it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is Bob Keegan and Lisa Leahy's immunity to change work. Our brains will fight it because it's out of self-protection. And so
Yeah.
unless someone helps us identify it and see it, we're going to get stuck. So I love that you're looking at that. So kudos to you. So then let me ask you this. What is one impactful way that you are showing up as a leader, both in your professional life as well as your personal life these days?
Great question. The thing that, again, this is what's showing up right now. I can't say like, I didn't have it written on my mirror. I will show up powerfully as a leader today, but like this is coming in my field.
You're good enough. You're smart enough. And gosh darn it, people like you. No, I was kidding. Stuart Smalley. Sorry.
Well, believe it or not, I actually do have a little sticker inside my medicine cabinet that says "Leaders floss." That's where I'm like, okay, yeah,
I love it.
Leaders do floss. So if I'm a leader, I need to floss. But
I love it.
But what's showing up right now is supporting women leaders around imposter syndrome. It's like, it's just like every single woman I connect with is like, this imposter syndrome, man, it's killing me. I'm like, well, got an app for that. Just from my purpose guiding work, we can explore those voices and all that kind of stuff. And I just, I don't know what you call that, a leader, just, knowing something that can help someone. So I've just been doing that. And I think that we probably both agree if we had more women playing bigger games, then the world would be a lot better place.
Yeah, true. Well, and I would say, granted, women have been disadvantaged, but I will tell you that I coach so many leaders that imposter syndrome is so broad spread. It's not just with women. It's just that women have been, haven't had as many opportunities for as long as men have had, and are still, as we know, not paid at the same level, can't call themselves doctor, whatever it might be. But one thing you said that I think is really important, and I would just say as a blind spot, like this might be part of you. You're like, I don't know if this is a leader. I'm just helping people find their purpose. Like that is absolutely a leader. When we are supporting others in getting out of their own way and stepping into their greatness, when we are having a positive impact around us, from my purview, that's leadership. So I would just say to stop saying that I don't know if this is leadership or not. That is 1,000,000,000% leadership. So there you go. Yeah. So we're going to shift gears to the wrap up. These are the quick question or kind of rapid fire if you're game. So just kind of the first thing that comes to mind, and we'll have a little fun. They start out a little bit more thoughtful, and then they get fun and silly, because why not, right? So first question, Brandon, fill in the blank. Living authentically is?
Morning ritual, deep relationships, and community.
Lovely. When the world is presenting an opening, but you don't feel like showing up as a leader, what do you do?
I wing it. I just try to do it. See what happens.
Fake it till you make it, or right? Just get in action anyway.
Let's try it.
Hey, I love it. I love it. When's the last time you were courageous, and how did you show up?
I mean, this could be a long story, but I won't. My house was put on an Instagram feed for domestic terrorism who don't like people who support Black Lives Matter. And I obviously could have taken the signs down, and the San Diego PD said, take the signs down. I'm like, no, that's not how that works, man. I just like kind of stood in the white ally stand. Like, no, I'm not going to take off my window pane and the signs because somebody, yells something at me or takes pictures and puts my address on a site and says the tyrants will be killed and all that kind of stuff. And it's scary and all that. But anyways, it's a longer story. But yeah, just
that would be a whole other conversation. Holy moly!
That's a whole other.
Well, but you're standing for what you believe in and having your voice out there, even though there's legitimate threats coming to you. I mean, I would say that's pretty darn. That's big. That's big courage. That's like big C courage, right? So, wow. All right. Well, I'm glad that you're safe. That's a good thing. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that it stays that way. What is something people would be surprised to know about you?
I've been arrested in 6 different states.
Wow.
Many of them in the Midwest too.
All right. Okay, we're moving on to the fourth. Unless you want to say more about it, I don't know. No,
I mean, unless you want to talk about it, but I mean, it's stupid.
Okay, the 4Cs. So this is the fun conversation starter, get to know people that I like to ask every guest. You can use these at social functions next time you can be around people. So if reality, money, no object, the first C is what car would you want to have? Second C is what country would you want to visit? Third C is what cuisine would you want to eat? It does not have to be related to the country. And fourth is what celebrity, living or dead, would you want to eat that cuisine with?
Okay. All right. The first one's actually kind of tricky because I literally have tried to decarb my life. But I'm from the Midwest. I grew up with muscle cars and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think it would be one of those muscle cars that's been like tricked out with like double Tesla engines and goes like 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds.
Nice.
Like a Dodge Charger that just like, but totally sustainable. Or
yep. Fast and Furious, baby. Love it. Okay.
And then what was the country?
Country.
I've been to a handful, but I wish I could say, oh, I want to go to this country I haven't been to, but I want to go back to India to this spiritual festival that happens once every 12 years called the Kumbh Mela. And I've seen documentaries on it. I'm like, oh, I mean, in pandemic times, it makes you like, because there's like millions of people at this thing. You're like, no. But like
6 feet apart. No.
6 feet apart. But I just want to go hang out with all these like gurus and like sadhus and, and just be among people who are really deeply devoted to God. I think that'd be cool.
Nice. And what cuisine would you want to eat, and what celebrity would you want to eat the cuisine with?
I would like, this is, I'll be judged for saying this by somebody. I would like to have suckling pig with Ernest Hemingway in Spain in like 1923.
That's very specific. That's awesome. All right. Fantastic. All right. Your favorite go-to movie? It's
kind of hard to like think about anything other than Christmas Vacation right now. It's just, I mean,
it is the time of year.
Every character
it's December 22nd when we're recording this, so there you go. Yeah. Your signature dance move?
Back in the day, I could do a pretty good Michael Jackson, like full routine, with like the moonwalk and the kicks and the spins and all that.
No way, that's awesome. Yeah. Oh, do you have any videos?
Golly, I don't think I do. Although I do have a video of me doing a ballet in a tutu from business school.
Oh, hey, well, close enough. Close enough. So along with that, what's your go-to song?
Right now, it's Thunder Road by Bruce Springsteen.
Nice. The boss. In another life, your job or career would be?
Astronaut, like delegate to the Intergalactic Federation of like conscious cosmic cousins. Something like that.
All right. Fantastic. Conscious cosmic cousins. That's awesome. Okay. What's something you can't live without?
Something? I mean.
Well, thing broadly, right?
Thing broadly. Oh, it'd be my wife. I mean, yeah.
Oh. Something in your ordinary daily life that makes your heart happy?
My cat. My cat's awesome. He's a bruiser and a lover and, just he's so awesome.
What's your cat's name?
Kizzy.
All right. Awesome. And last but not least, what are you grateful for right now?
I used to think that these were exciting times in like 2012. And I'm like, okay. It looks like we're revisiting every single assumption we hold to be true. So, I mean, it's like I got to kind of play some midwifery in hopefully some expansion and human flourishing. Because Because I mean, I'd be bummed if I like died 10 years ago. Be like, oh man, I missed that. Right. So yeah, just being alive and being able to hold some space for whatever's coming through us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you, one, for just being so real and so authentic of sharing yourself in this conversation. It's been such a delight. And two, I want to thank you for really taking your passion and the need of, not knowing where Unity Lab is going to go, but just, I think you're doing such important work to help people build authentic connections and get outside themselves and build diverse communities and heal some of these divides. And so I just thank you for your work. It's totally inspiring for me as well, and gets me thinking about where am I having missed opportunities in my own life, even though I think I've been intentional, but hey, am I seeking out that person, or am I seeking to understand, or am I shutting down because of my judgment? So I just so appreciate all that you're bringing to the world and to this conversation.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you for your work. I really enjoyed this conversation too.
Thank you so much for listening to Show Up as a Leader. If you haven't yet subscribed, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. I'm Rosie Ward, and you can find me online at drrosieward.com, where you'll be able to sign up for my newsletter, check out the books I'm reading, and hear from the people I'm talking to. You can also get more information on what I'm up to professionally, including my coaching and speaking services. You can also find me on LinkedIn at rward, Facebook and Instagram at Dr. Rosie Ward, or email me at rosie@drrosieward.com. And I just want to remind you to remember that you have the choice every day to show up as a leader. So choose courage over comfort, embrace your humanity, and never, ever dull your sparkle. Take care, everyone.